Let's talk for a moment about pocket-sized prayer books. Hello everyone. I received recently in the mail a care package from Joe St. Egg Benedictus, and I've been meaning to get to its contents, so I'm going to start with one item in that care package, and a few other items will be making an appearance soon on my channel. But Joe sent me this little Holy Week Missal that he apparently found in a thrift shop. It is produced by the Confraternity of the Precious Blood, the Restored Order of Holy Week Services for the use of the laity. So this is for your average parishioner in the pews to use during Holy Week for services during that time period, in a very small pocket-sized format that would be relatively cheap to produce, easy to carry, and has everything your average parishioner would need to follow along with services during Holy Week. And it's a really neat little book. The typography is very similar to that in a few other Confraternity publications I have, notably the Confraternity Bible, New Testament, that is paired with a primarily a Douay-Rheims Old Testament that I've reviewed on this channel. You can find that if you so choose. But what a neat little book. I'm glad he sent this to me. One, because it's so cool, but two, because it brought to mind a subject that I continue to be harping on frequently. Before we move on from this book, let's just appreciate the really terrific graphics. We've got red rubrics. Do they call them rubrics in Catholic Missal? Probably do. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Fantastic little artworks. But of course it got me thinking again on finding the perfect prayer book for my purposes. I'm not a Roman Catholic. Of course, I'm not an Anglican either, but the prayer books that I am used to and more likely to find useful for me are from the Church of England, the Anglican tradition, and the Book of Common Prayer. And here we have a pocket Book of Common Prayer produced by Oxford. It's a classic here. When you open it, you see my problem with this book as a prayer book. I do not have the eyes of a young man any longer, so the print is a little tiny for me. Plus, it is the entirety of the Book of Common Prayer, which the Book of Common Prayer is sort of the Church of England distilled into a book to be transported around the world. So Mother England could send on her sailing ships the Church of England in book form, and it would land and take root in whatever continent they happen to be colonizing at that moment, which is why we have state churches all over the world that owe their existence, their birth, to the Church of England. Fantastic way to spread this style of Christianity, and it has been successful over the past nearly 500 years in doing so. But it includes a lot of things you need in order to set up a church like the Church of England, but those things aren't very useful for your average Christian today, just wanting to use the prayer book for morning and evening prayer, or maybe to take along to church for Holy Communion. Similarly, we have a pocket-sized volume here by Cambridge. This is the 1662 prayer book. This is a 1928 American prayer book, if I didn't say that. The 1662 comes in this little, this actually isn't the smallest size they produce, I don't believe. But similar problems in that, problem here in quotes, it's the entirety of the prayer book, which has, in addition to morning and evening prayer and Holy Communion, it has all of the ordinal. It has, so if you're wanting to ordain a priest, a bishop, a deacon, etc., it also has baptismal services, catechism, confirmation, burial services. It has the complete Psalter, of course. A lot of things that I would not be using, and your average in the pew parishioner would not need in a prayer book unless they wanted to follow along while one of those services was taking place. So, I already talked at length some time ago about finding my perfect prayer book. And lately I've been looking at the 2019 ACNA Book of Common Prayer as a beginner's prayer book. But I want to draw attention to this little volume again, which I've showed in the past, is a, what do they call it? Condensed, abridged pocket edition of this book. And I think this makes moves in the right direction for what I'm looking for. Now again, I'm speaking only for my own uses and my own preferences. I know that my preferences don't order the structure of the universe, but what would be helpful to me is something more along these lines, but maybe abridged even further. So you could get something like this missal, but not just for Holy Week, but for every day of the year. In fact, you could get something about this size that would perform that function if it included only morning and evening prayer and the table of lessons. Back to this book. So it's the Book of Common Prayer as is found in the 2019 ACNA prayer book, which follows relatively closely the 1928 American prayer book. Relatively. Some 1979 thrown in. But here we have, in the table of contents, we've got the daily office, so morning and evening prayer. They have also added Compline, family prayer, some supplemental canticles that you can add in. It's got the litany, great. Eucharist, don't necessarily need that because I'm not in a church that uses the prayer book, so I'm not going to be doing Eucharist by my lonesome at home, so not really that useful for me to have in here. Some pastoral rites. I guess this book would be useful for a priest that is visiting parishioners, maybe that are unable to come to the local church. Has the complete Psalter, calendars and lectionaries. They did include the couple of extra things here. The Nicene Creed and Athanasian Creed. I was thinking this had the 39 articles in it, but it apparently does not. So it's a stripped down prayer book, but is it stripped down enough for me? Then you kind of have, going a little bit in the opposite direction, a couple of books that I've reviewed recently. Divine Worship Daily Office from the Ordinariate. And this is the daily office with all of the readings laid out in the order you would encounter them in the lectionary. So it has, I think this is in the Revised Standard Catholic Edition, if I remember right. Has all the readings laid out in the order you would find them in the lectionary. But it does have some extras in the actual daily office itself. It's not the relatively stripped down 1662 or even 1928 American. It's based on the 1928 Common Prayer, but there are some additions to it that I could probably do without, easy enough to skip over, but you could strip this down even a little more. And then this beautiful humdinger of a prayer book here that I've looked at briefly and I will return to in the near future. Anglican office book. It's the Divine Office, also based on the 1928 American Common Prayer. And this one is bound up with the King James Bible, with the apocryphal books. We've got in the center the morning and evening prayer, matins and evensong, but again with some additions, antiphons and additional canticles and such like that, additional saints' days that aren't in the classic prayer books of the Church of England. So some things I could do without if I wanted to strip down and make a pocket-sized prayer book. A phenomenal book, but if you're talking about a pocket-sized prayer book that include only the things you needed for morning and evening prayer, this overshoots that target by quite a lot. So for an office book, for someone not attending a liturgical church, that is a church not using one of the classic prayer books, is there something better than this? Why don't we have a stripped down prayer book that would fit in your pocket, that you can actually read, that would have only those things necessary for the daily office for the Church of England? Is it that they don't want to separate what is essentially a perfect whole, the whole, W-H-O-L-E, the 1662, for instance, prayer book? It's the seed from which to grow a church like the Church of England, and complete unto itself, with the addition of the Bible, of course, naturally. You don't need to add the Bible with these. They include that in it. But if you just assume you'll need to have a Bible as well, couldn't we have a morning and evening prayer, a daily office, in a format like this? Why isn't there such a thing? I would think that would be a really useful thing for myself and perhaps for others as well. If you're aware of any such book, let me know. If there isn't such a book, why isn't there? It seems like a logical thing to have. Of course, one answer might be the Church of England never anticipated someone doing morning and evening prayer by their lonesome at home and not attending their local parish for Holy Communion and other services. But I am one of those Christians that attends a non-liturgical church but uses daily morning and evening prayer for my own spiritual growth and development, Bible study, and such like. I'd like to hear about it in the comments if you know of any such book for us unchurched Anglicans, I suppose. Not unchurched, but not a member of an Anglican parish. If you know of such a book, let me know. Why isn't there such a book? Thanks for sticking with me through this discussion of a mythical pocket prayer book. Hope to see you here again next time.